All right, Trumpers, come and get me. Hey, listen, so one of the biggest things that I've noticed now is Donald Trump is actually on the defense. He's on the defense because everybody's coming down hard on him because I think he's losing his administration. Donald Trump has lost his administration day one he took office. Donald Trump lost his administration when he started putting all these whack jobs in place like Pete Hegseth, Vince McMahon's wife, RFJK Jr., all these other people, he started losing them. And then as time has went on, now we got the Jeffrey Epstein. Now we've got a war he can't control. Now we got inflation he can't control. Now we have prices at the grocery store he can't control. Now we're not drill baby drill talk no more. Every day he wakes up, he's got to play defense because he's not an honest man. He's a crooked man. It is what it is. I don't make the rules. Look at his business dealings. Look at his lawsuits. Look that he's a convicted felon. Look at his sexual behavior. Look at the E. Jean Carroll case. All these things is the person that we're letting run this country and letting us set things in place for the kids in our schools, make our taxes. When this man is only out for himself, there's no way you can sit down on your couch or your chair and say that Donald Trump is out for you. He's out for himself. He's out to protect his kids. He's out to get rid of his indictment. Maybe you'll make a better choice next time. Not for sure. We hope so.
Fuck your pre-approval bullshit. It's not the way this fucking country works. The Pentagon wants to get all the reporters that cover it to sign censorship agreements where they can only release stuff that's been pre-approved by the Pentagon. It's the first fucking amendment. It's freedom of the press. None of that shit. Okay? None of that shit is going anywhere. And because we're going to fucking stop it. So if you're part of this press pool, if you're part of these news organizations, get the lawyers up and running. Bring that lawsuit now. Multiple lawsuits now. Stop this bullshit, right? Start the leaks. Massive leaks. Active military, 3-letter agencies, contractors. Start the fucking leaks. Let's go. Shut this shit down. We are not going down this road because it will not go well for you. You think you've got right-wing commentators who are railing against you now for the freedom of speech bullshit. Oh, while you're trying to hide the files, because that's the big thing you want to hide, right? You're fucking done. Like, you want to keep pushing this because you think it's some kind of, Russian society or China. We were never that. We've been fucked up, but we were never that. This country is built on freedom of speech, freedom of the press, okay? Let's be honest. You're going to push these buttons and it will not go your way. Pre-approval my ass.
Hey everybody. Remember how I told you that Donald Trump has forgiven over $1 billion in debts owed by millionaires and billionaires convicted of crimes? Well, he just added another $800 million to that total. I'm Liz Oyer, the former pardon attorney for the Department of Justice. During the first months of his presidency, Trump granted clemency to dozens of people convicted of crimes involving fraud, meaning cheating other people out of money. Under federal law, those convicted of fraud are required to repay the money that they stole from their victims. But not so for those who Trump pardoned. Donald Trump's pardons had the legal effect of wiping out the obligation to repay the money. In total, Donald Trump's pardons have wiped out over $1.3 billion in debts owed by wealthy Americans to taxpayers and victims of crime. These are the receipts that I've showed you previously. Now, Trump has gone a step further. This week, the Securities and Exchange Commission abandoned civil enforcement actions against 3 of Trump's wealthiest pardon recipients. The SEC is a government agency responsible for protecting investors by filing civil lawsuits against those who commit fraud. But now, under the leadership of a Trump appointee named Paul Atkins, the SEC is walking away from those efforts to protect victims of fraud. Here are the 3 lucky beneficiaries of Trump's generosity. The first is Trevor Milton. Milton was convicted of defrauding investors in his electric car company out of over $600 million. Milton got a pardon after he donated millions to Trump and hired Brad Bondi, the brother of Attorney General Pam Bondi, to represent him. Next is Carlos Watson, who cheated investors in his media company and owed about $97 million. Watson leveraged connections to Trump, including paying $1 million to a well-connected attorney. And finally, Devin Archer, who stole money from workers' pension funds and a Native American tribe. Archer owed about $60 million in penalties. He received a full pardon after he agreed to assist members of Congress who were investigating Hunter Biden. These three could have been on the hook for over $800 million, but instead, they're walking away scot-free thanks to Donald Trump. In total, adding up the criminal penalties and the potential civil penalties that Trump has forgiven, the amount is over $2 billion. But definitely don't ask Donald Trump to forgive your student loans.
So you might remember there was a little bit of an announcement where that place over there, the place that we fund fully over there, used our dollars to pay Google and the Tube and a couple of other places to push pro-them stuff, okay? Well, apparently they're purging the Chucky videos where he starts speaking out against settlement land. I'm sure that has nothing to do with the money that exchanged hands recently. And apparently that guy, the minister of over there has released, 5, 6 different statements swearing he had nothing to do with what happened? While dude's best friend is saying absolutely, they had something to do with it over there, and over here they're helping to cover for it. Again, not saying that I like her or that I trust her, I'm just pointing out some stuff. They are trying to throw off professional conspiracy theorists who might be onto a real bone on this one by burying it deeper. Because that's going to get them to stop digging, right? If you start hiding it, they're going to stop looking. That's how it works when you're a theorist. Okay. Side note, I just want to point out that despite the fact that no agency can find any link from what happened to the left hand, I'm still trying to figure out why a bunch of people in bodies like mine are being found dangling across the nation. It's almost like these people default to taking out their pain on us when we have nothing to do. It's almost like we've been saying that again and again, but this is a great example because we literally have nothing to do with what happened. And what are they doing? Coming after us and throwing tea. Side note, I saw one of those videos pop up on my feed again, and darling, it was ratioed in the comments. I am so proud of y'all. It was everything from, what's wrong with you guys? Leave the baristas alone. Why do you want to, what does this have to do with anything? To folks saying, you know what, we're going to do a double espresso and call it the Kimmel. And for those of you who are still shocked that they want memorials and statues, these are the same people who still want to honor Confederate losers. I need you to understand that. The people they worship the most are losers of whom you can't even repeat their quotes. Look at their Confederate memorials. You can't even repeat what the people they worship say. So that is not new for them to lift up someone of whose quotes you can't even repeat because they're so terrible. It's to make them feel better and to intimidate people like me. Because again, their whole culture is being toxic. That's it. That's it. Who can they bother? In the name of free speech, we're gonna take away free speech. Yeah, that's not going the way they thought it was going to go.
Alarm bells are going off in Europe and here in the United States, as yesterday the Trump administration decided it's going to halt some security assistance funding to European countries, specifically those countries along the eastern flank of Russia. The Pentagon said this includes funding under Section 333 and the Baltic Security Initiative. This is what helps finance weapons and training to these European countries. And it is more crucial now than ever. This has left Europe scrambling. So after the Trump administration makes this announcement, last night Russia launched a massive drone attack with 579 attack drones into Ukraine, many of which went close to the border of Poland, having Poland forced to scramble defense fighter jets, put their ground defense systems on the highest level of readiness, and then NATO jets encountered 3 Russian fighter jets that they intercepted over Estonia. This was a brazen incursion into Estonia's airspace, forcing the NATO response, and it is Putin pushing things as far as he can yet again to test the NATO response. Italian F-35 fighter jets stationed in Estonia intercepted the Russian jets and forced them back to their own airspace. And Russia, of course, denies that there was any incursion that took place. Do you think Trump's move yesterday just gave Putin the green light to do this? Do you think Trump is more aligned with Russia than our European allies? Let me know in the comments, because it's sure starting to look that damn way, and we better do something about it here soon. Comment, like, share, spread the word, follow, subscribe, and I'll see you back here for the 411.
News. Jeffrey Epstein, Alex Acosta, the U.S. attorney, as you may know, testified this week before the House Oversight Committee. And many complaints about the sweetheart deal that Alex Acosta gave Jeffrey Epstein. What? Yes, if you don't know basically what happened, and Alex Acosta still defended his deal with Jeffrey Epstein, and also this deal protected all of the co-conspirators. All the co-conspirators. All of these wealthy, rich men. Yep, all of them were protected under this deal. And the deal basically that Epstein got was an 18-month sentence. He basically could go to his office 12 hours a day and then basically had to go back at night. And he got out after 13 months on good behavior, right. Later to be rearrested because of all the other charges with all the other victims. And Alex Acosta is trying to say in his oversight meeting that Epstein didn't get a sweetheart deal. Why are the Republicans protecting these rich, wealthy people that did these horrible things to these young teenage girls? Why is it? Donald Trump pretends he's on law and order. Right. We're protecting all of these co-conspirators, which may include the Orange Jesus himself, and others by refusing to release the Epstein files. We have no problem with apparently lots of other criminals, that whether it's from January 6th, all these other wealthy people that Donald Trump has pardoned, that's okay. Donald Trump wants to tell us he's big on crime, but he's not. Donald Trump himself is a felon 34 times over. Big on crime, right. What do you believe? But Jeffrey Epstein and his co-conspirators all were protected, and this is wrong, and why are the Republicans doing it? Love to hear from my Democrats, my MAGAs, my crazies, my cuckoos, burned out light bulbs. Don't let the questions about Jeffrey Epstein stop. Not to mention, continue with our free speech. We cannot allow a dictator to take over this country. Got enough with the pervs and all of them taking over, and they all happen to be Republican men for the most part. And if Bill Clinton and any other Democrat are on that list, they need to be prosecuted too. I have no problem with anybody. I don't care what party you are. Get all of them, but release the list unredacted. Period.
If you're frustrated with other facilities.
Freedom of speech lasted 234 years in the United States. Not a bad run. Interestingly, of course, the actual First Amendment from 1791 speaks of passing laws that would abridge freedom of speech, not dictates from a criminal government, a criminal presidency, a criminal executive. That was not something that was anticipated in there, and I suppose that's one of the ways that they can get around it, that and the fact that there seems to be really no oversight or checks and balances anymore in the U.S. government. That's a particular concern, as you can imagine, especially when we've seen law firms attacked first, then universities. Of course, undocumented immigrants were an easy, low-hanging fruit target. Very frightening that so many people are willing to sign up to be part of Trump's secret inland enforcement, ICE team. People with very few credentials and obviously not much for morals. That is emblematic, I guess, of something. What is the next frightening step? Of course, I've talked before about the U.S. border officials having set up border controls for people trying to leave the United States. This is something that is happening in Washington State and probably at many other border crossings. We know it's fairly well documented now. And part of the reason for this is the future of controlling people's movement. So there is a push now in the U.S., and it's going to happen, that they will be able to refuse people passports. And I would imagine, just like these border checkpoints that they have for people exiting, this is to discourage women who may be looking for reproductive health options outside of the U.S. And ultimately, I would expect that they will be denying people passports who are seeking reproductive health options outside of the U.S. In other words, this is an attempt to control women's bodies. And that's part of the program. It's something we were all warned about and that we knew was coming. We knew that these clampdowns were coming on freedom of speech and that freedom of speech would dissolve fairly rapidly under the U.S. We knew that authoritarians are fairly effective at attracting people with huge amounts of money because they see their huge amount of money at risk and they're more concerned about money than they are morals. And now we see this next step. And of course, the irony is that you've got the most morally corrupt president you could possibly imagine, a person who's committed sexual assaults on children, who is quite clearly someone who has assaulted women before, and this has been proven in court, who's been convicted of 34 frauds. And this is all under the guise of some sort of distorted view of Christian teaching. And right now, of course, they're turning against the population who are the low-hanging fruit. The next low-hanging fruit will be women who are looking, well, women. But for the most part, white people have not really felt it except in the job market. And they haven't felt it because those are the people who have been the supporters. But ultimately, they'll start to turn against more internal groups. And we learned recently that there are people who are more extreme, and they feel that there's a battle going on there, and there's a willingness to use violence. And so eventually they'll turn against each other, but not before they've done all of the damage. Obviously, the U.S. international reputation has been basically, has been turned over into the ground, and the U.S. moral authority is completely gone, and the U.S. economy is headed for a complete collapse. But these are the things that those people, those extremists, are willing to do in order to push their agenda. And their agenda is as I say, white nationalist, freaky Christian agenda. It's frightening. It's frightening being anywhere in the world and watching this happen, because at one point, the U.S., it was, plausibly deniable, I guess, or plausible that the U.S. was the protector of freedom. But when you see that the First Amendment to their Constitution that's been in force for 234 years can be so quickly undermined and taken apart with really no repercussions except maybe something in the court, and even then there's no safety because the court's been stacked, you have to come to the conclusion that their moral authority really never did exist, and it was all just an illusion.
This video is mostly for my Congresswoman, Maxine Dexter, but it's also for anybody in her district here in Oregon who heard her say at her last town hall that the reason that she is not calling what is happening in Gaza a genocide is because it has not been officially declared that, and she wanted to be really careful to use language that is not going beyond what experts are describing the situation as. And I like Maxine. Again, transparency, I did not vote for her in the primary, but I voted for her in the general election. And I feel like she's, overwhelmingly doing a good job. And I think she really does care what her constituents say. And she does try and listen and represent the folks in her district. I do not envy any freshman Democrat in Congress at all. I could not imagine doing that job. It's got to be terrible. But in this town hall, I was frustrated because folks stood up and asked her, like, why won't you call it a genocide? And I'm going to paraphrase here a bunch, but her perspective, as I understood it, was if she used the term genocide, that would shut down conversation with people she was trying to convince. So she felt it was an inflammatory term. And until some expert body like the UN declared that it was a genocide, she was going to continue to use phrases like humanitarian crisis. And Maxine has been criticized so far pretty heavily by her constituents for what they perceive as her hesitancy around Gaza, even though she's clearly said from the get-go that we should not be sending arms to Israel. They are violating the Leahy law. That as a physician and a mother, she felt that what was happening is continuing to happen is unconscionable. But still, a lot of her constituents feel that she's not going far enough. Multiple town halls I've been to of Maxine's have been interrupted pretty heavily by pro-Palestinian activists. So the reason that I'm making this video now, and I will be calling Maxine's office as well, is because in that town hall, she's like, I'm not going to call it a genocide until an authoritative body declares it a genocide, and that hasn't happened yet, and that I don't think that it's helpful for having conversations, persuasive conversations with other people to use terms that are not official or whatever. It actually, in the moment, reminded me of how people said we shouldn't call Trump a fascist, that was hyperbolic. Yeah. That didn't age too well, did it? Because look what he's doing, literal fascism. But the reason that I'm making this video now is that Maxine said when the UN declares it a genocide, she will start using that term. And this week, the United Nations Commission of Inquiry says that Israel has committed genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. So Maxine, are you going to start using that term? The new report out says there are reasonable grounds to conclude that 4 of the 5 genocidal acts defined under international law have been carried out since the start of the war with Hamas in 2023. Those include killing members of a group, causing them serious bodily and mental harm, deliberately inflicting conditions calculated to destroy the group, and preventing births. The report cites statements made by Israeli leaders and a pattern of conduct by Israeli forces as evidence of genocidal intent. Of course, Israel denies the claims in this report, but according to the BBC, at least 64,964 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli attacks since October 7th, 2023. According to the BBC, most of the population has been repeatedly displaced since October 7th, 2023. More than 90% of homes are damaged or destroyed. The healthcare, water, sanitation, and hygiene systems have completely collapsed. UN-backed food security experts have declared a famine in Gaza City. Now, I've explained in a series of videos why a famine is a man-made construct. It is a tool of genocide. It is an intentional choice to deprive a population of access to food. It is not a natural disaster. It is a weapon of war. It is a war crime. Please understand, if you're worried about bias here, this commission previously concluded that Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups had committed war crimes and other grave violations of international law on October 7th itself. They also previously concluded that Israeli security forces have committed crimes against humanity and war crimes in Gaza. Their job is to investigate and accurately describe and report the conditions that are happening in the region. And so it's not strictly them reporting just on Israel. They have on the actions of Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups as well. I guess I have a couple of questions here. And then I also want to correct something I said a while ago in a video about Gaza, or maybe not correct, but like an evolution of my thinking on the issue that I want to make really clear here. I guess my questions for Maxine are you going to call it a genocide now? And how are you going to continue to have those conversations with your colleagues, I guess, in Congress who don't have the same perspective that you or I may have on what is happening? How are you going to continue to persuade people without minimizing what's actually occurring? And I guess my question for my fellow constituents in Maxine's district is, if she does start calling it a genocide, is that going to be satisfactory? What else do you want to see from her on this issue? And more than that, what do you think would be the most effective tactic for her to take to change hearts and minds, to reach people in DC, to reach her colleagues, to reach constituents in her district that probably wouldn't listen to you or I at all? What do you think is the most effective means for getting people to understand accurately what is happening and then to care about it enough to do something or to push their legislators to do something? This is where I kind of want to correct something that I said a while back. So I don't know, maybe it's just my own bias, my own perception, because I'm in a little bubble in Portland, Oregon. But even here, I have a chunk of friends who agree with my perspective on what is happening in Gaza. And then I have a chunk of friends who are like a little bit checked out. And you can tell that the tremendous amount of like AIPAC rhetoric has kind of worked on them. And if you try to bring up what's happening in Gaza, they'll be like, oh yeah, but what about Hamas? And it's a kind of a non-starter from the get-go. It's difficult to have that conversation with folks where they can understand the severity of what's happening, the tremendous amount of human suffering. And I said in a video a while back, I think it was when people threw red paint on AOC's office after she didn't vote along with Marjorie Taylor Greene, that our job is to change hearts and minds, right? To change public opinion. Because if we want to help the people of Palestine, then we need to have popular support to push legislators. Our popular support has to be strong enough to override all of the money that they get from AIPAC. And I get frustrated when I see people taking actions that I think are going to negatively impact public opinion. And at the time, I was operating out of this poll that came out after what happened on October 7th. And that poll said that 40% of Americans thought Israel was going too far. And I was like, well, a majority of Americans are not in opposition to what Israel is doing. I was operating out of my own limited perspective of interacting with my friends and also outdated polling information. Even back in 2023, 58% of Democrats felt that Israel had gone too far. And I remember being like kind of horrified that that number was that low. But there is a new poll out today. When asked whether folks think Israel has gone too far in Palestine, more than 7 out of 10 Democrats say yes. Public opinion has shifted significantly. This is really the kicker for me. Independents, previously 39%, thought that Israel had gone too far in Gaza. And now 53%, a majority of independent voters think that Israel has gone too far. If you look at even Republicans, it went from 18% to 24%. Overall, the percentage of Americans who think that Israel has gone too far in Gaza has increased from 40 to 49%. I think we're really reaching a tipping point where public opinion is shifting pretty dramatically. And I think that's a good thing because we have to build public pressure. I don't personally see a way that we can actually stop what's happening, that we can actually stop our government from supporting the genocide of Palestinians as long as Donald Trump and Bibi are like best buds and Trump will support what Bibi wants. And as long as Republicans are in Donald Trump's pocket, right? Under his thumb, in his pocket, however you want to frame it. But I hope that Democrats, like my Congresswoman Maxine Dexter, will look at this new polling and say, okay, we need to accurately describe what's happening here. This is a winning position. It's a moral position for us to take up, and it's also a strategic position. 71% of Democrats don't like what Israel is doing in Gaza and think they've gone too far. And nearly half of Americans, right? Democrats have got to see this as something that is politically expedient for them, as well as moral and just, to take up this issue, to accurately describe what's happening, and to work to stop it. So Maxine, I would love to hear what your response is to the polling that is out today and also to this new UN report declaring that Israel has committed 4 out of the 5 genocidal acts against the people of Gaza.